Welcome to this Alaska Land Mobile Radio training presentation, In-Building Radio Amplifiers. In this training, we will identify features of in-building radio amplifiers, also known as BDAs or Bi-Directional Amplifiers, discuss code requirements, and specific ALMR considerations for these devices. Please note that the installation and management of these devices is governed by fire code, and any jurisdiction should contact their local fire marshal or building official for information on specific code requirements, as these can change based on your jurisdiction and your specific situation. Bidirectional amplifiers, or BDAs, are devices in buildings that provide for radio coverage generally within the building. These devices have historically been used in buildings that have limited or no reception due to their physical location, their building construction and materials, or both. The system receives radio signals from ALMR or other similar systems from an outside antenna and puts them through a distribution system inside the building. The radios from first responders when they enter the building can utilize the BDA system in order to get sufficient coverage for public safety communications. By code, these systems are generally designed to provide a signal of 95% of all areas of the building and 99% of those areas of the building considered critical. That critical definition is defined by your local code official. The technical design of bidirectional amplifiers vary greatly based on the building type, size, and functions. In addition, there are a number of technical requirements within International Fire Code that influence the design and installation of BDAs. In their simplest form, the BDA consists of antennas, both external to the building and internal to the building, where the radio frequency energy from the ALMR or other public safety repeater system is received and transmitted. The radio frequency energy picked up by the outside antennas are distributed throughout the building on internal antennas with use of the amplifier hardware. This hardware may be located in a utility room in a basement area or attic area where building systems are located, or could be in various other areas depending on building design. Generally, these BDAs also require monitoring in a similar way as a fire alarm system. Therefore, they may come with a monitoring panel, which may be in the same location as a fire panel, or could be in a different staffed area. In addition, there are other technical requirements such as battery backup and others that can be referenced in the International Fire Code. Section 510 of the 2021 version of the International Fire Code mandates the requirements for BDA systems. In summary, new buildings must have emergency responder communication coverage, which is generally provided by the BDA systems. These codes are intended to ensure that first responders, when entering a building of differing construction, or an area that has lower radio coverage, are able to communicate during an emergency. It is important to consult with the code and with your local official to talk about exceptions and your exact requirements. When there is sufficient radio coverage in an area, the BDA is not generally required. However, there are several nuances to the code requirements and technical considerations that must go into the decision-making when constructing a new building or attempting or planning to retrofit an existing building for additional radio coverage. The ALMR Help Desk cannot provide information specific to codes and their interpretation, and this should be done through your local building official or fire marshal. In Alaska, the use cases for the BDA systems generally involve new construction. However, there are a number of existing buildings that local areas may be aware of that have poor radio communication coverage. Some of these facilities may have a large amount of calls for service or presence of public safety officials that may require increased radio coverage. Generally, this occurs in buildings that are located in areas of poor coverage or based on their construction methods. For instance, facilities in Alaska that may have poor radio reception as they're constructed include large public facilities such as courthouses and police and fire stations, or large office buildings. Schools and hospitals are often constructed with concrete and other materials that attenuate the radio signal, and some areas of these facilities may not have radio coverage at all. Even large commercial and retail buildings, such as big box stores, may have poor radio coverage depending on construction techniques and location. The requirements for BDAs in new construction to provide for first responder communication is an admirable goal. However, there are specific considerations that must be taken under account when installing this equipment. The ALMR system has had experience with bidirectional amplifiers, and they can affect the system in multiple ways. Depending on the specific scenario, the exact design of the system may affect how the ALMR system can interact with that particular location and the users that are in that building. This can include basic items such as the location of the building and how far away it is from the nearest ALMR site, but can also deal with the type of antenna, whether it's a directional or omnidirectional antenna, the amount of power, and more variables. This refers to the external antenna of the BDA system and how it interacts with that site. Such systems may require adjustment to the ALMR system from the site perspective or on the system perspective itself. In addition, interference has been caused with improperly designed or configured BDA equipment. That can cause interference not only within the local area or the local building, but for other users that use the same ALMR site that the BDA is connected to. After a BDA is installed, especially in private facilities, there is often not changes or maintenance to this radio equipment as required. There are several technical requirements that must be maintained to comply with code standards. However, there has been national conversation since the adoption of these code standards that some maintenance and upkeep may not be taking place effectively. Generally, these considerations include when there are changes to external radio coverage. For example, if a new ALMR site was brought online in the area of a BDA, the antenna design, power, or other configuration may require to be altered in order to not provide for interference to the ALMR system and to continue to provide radio coverage within the building. Basic maintenance, part replacement, antenna tuning, and other items are also required for these systems on a periodic basis, in the same way that maintenance of ALMR radio equipment occurs at least once a year. If periodic maintenance is not undertaken, oftentimes the system performance degrades over time, and that impacts radio communications within the building. Private owners may not be familiar with these types of systems and may not be aware of maintenance requirements or how to respond effectively to any sort of errors or alarms that the equipment may generate. All of these situations can result in poor radio coverage even when a BDA system is installed in a specific facility. When a new construction or an existing building where a BDA system is proposed to be installed is scheduled, the building owner must contact their local code official to discuss specific requirements for this installation. Different jurisdictions adopt different versions of fire code, and some provisions of code discussed here may or may not apply, or there may be different standards based on that local jurisdiction. Do not assume that any new construction requires a BDA system, as there are several exceptions outlined in fire code that only your local official can address. If there is the requirement for a BDA to be installed, Contact the ALMR Help Desk as soon as that need is identified. They can discuss specific technical information, location of sites, and gather the appropriate data to ensure that there is not any undue interference with the ALMR system, and to provide data that the system designer or building owner may need to effectively install a system that will work as expected. The ALMR Help Desk should be contacted as soon as that need is identified, and also must be communicated with during any testing or other times when the system is brought online during construction. This will allow the ALMR technical staff to monitor for any changes to the system, alarms, or other irregularities that may be caused by a technical issue with a BDA. The contact information for the ALMR Help Desk is displayed. You may also reach out to the ALMR Operations Management Office and check the ALMR website for additional technical information and procedures as it relates to BDAs and other components of the system.